Dr. Chase Me Donut says you might be interested in something like this. The fuck is this? What is wrong with the fucking volume today, man? It's either super fucking loud or super fucking low. Can people not have like a standard volume level on their fucking
May 30th,
videos?
2017, Sony officially discontinued the PlayStation 3 worldwide.
Oh, I remember this. I never had a PlayStation 3, but I remember that people not jailbroke them, but they managed to get so many free games somehow. Oh, when it had Linux.
In 2006, riding high on the success of the PlayStation 2, Sony was untouchable. With 60% of the market share in their favor, the PlayStation 3 was released in November of 2006. 1 year after the Xbox 360, for the price of $499, which incidentally was $200 more than the Xbox 360 Core Edition. As part of the 7th generation of home consoles, it shared many of the same hardware features as the Xbox 360. The PowerPC architecture, for
I think a lot of people bought this because it had Blu-ray too, right? Like instead of buying a Blu-ray player, because people thought that was the next shit, right? You just bought this and you saved a lot of money, like 2-in-1 kind of thing.
That
like
developers
games for your
complained
kids.
was hard to develop for.
Oh, it was even cheaper than a normal Blu-ray player. Oh, that's sick though.
2007, Gabe Newell, the president of
Oh,
Valve,
whatever happened to Blu-ray, dude? Whatever happened to that shit? I don't even know. Still good? I don't even know what it did. It was faster reading or something? I don't know.
obviously quoted that the
More
PlayStation
storage.
3 was a waste of everyone's time. But Sony countered this by saying that the system had huge untapped potential that had plenty to offer, and that wasn't an untrue statement. And we saw this especially later in the PlayStation 3
It's
life.
literally the norm now. No. The norm is not having any kinds of CDs whatsoever, dude. All digital. That is the fucking norm, dude.
Cycle with games such as Gran Turismo 6, Resistance 3, Uncharted 3, and The Last of Us by Naughty Dog.
Welcome
I'm gonna
to
shake some
Uganda.
hands, blend in, find somewhere quiet. You know what you have to do.
Ambassador. You're a sight.
Well, is she the same actress as Last of Us? But with shittier graphics?
Ambassador. You're a sight
No.
for sore eyes.
But for many AAA releases that the PlayStation 3 went toe-to-toe with the Xbox 360, many of the games looked and played the same, but there were some well-known
Kinda similar.
disasters, such as Bayonetta and Red Dead Redemption. So the story goes, the PlayStation 3 was hard to develop for, but it was also very hard to hack. Sony is no stranger to modded systems and software piracy. Before the PlayStation 3, the PS2 and the original PlayStation were easily modded, and going back further, most used PS1s you buy off the street have some type of mod chip built in. They were everywhere, and Sony was determined to enhance security on the PlayStation 3, and they did so in a big way. So, when it comes to hacking, if we compare the Xbox 360 to the Sony PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360 was quickly defeated in the first 12 months of its life cycle with the original DVD firmware exploits that allowed you to play backup DVD copies of retail games, which initially were undetectable on Xbox Live, but Microsoft got wind of what was going on very quickly and started to ban people from Xbox Live. And then in 2007 or early 2008 was the first public JTAG exploits that allowed the user to execute unsigned code on their Xbox 360, and at that point the system was pretty much busted wide open. Now this was a huge blow to Microsoft and their ego, and the time and money that they invested in the Xbox 360 security mechanism, because the hypervisor is meant to be the all-seeing, almighty gatekeeper that is supposed to stop any unauthorized tampering and stop the ability for any unauthorized code to be run on the system. But this was worked around and ultimately defeated. Now, the Sony PlayStation 3 also has a hypervisor, but because it was a Blu-ray drive, there was no easy way to exploit the DVD firmware and patch a updated firmware which allowed backups to be played. So initially, hackers turned to the Linux distribution on the PlayStation 3, known as Other OS. Now, Sony got wind of this very quickly and decided to patch out Linux on firmware 3.21 and higher. So what ended up happening was, by early 2010, 4 years after the Sony PlayStation 3 launch, the PlayStation 3 was set to become the most secure console ever made. Before we talk about what happened next, we need to discuss Other OS and Yellow Dog Linux. When Sony announced they would be removing Other OS in firmware 3.21 on April 1st, 2010, they were very sketchy about the details. There was no explanation given other than it was removed due to security concerns. But Sony was well aware of the hacking that was occurring under Linux, and they were worried that a user could gain hypervisor access and the keys to the mansion. But removing an important feature that was advertised as a selling point for the console did not sit well with consumers. On April 27, 2010, just 3 weeks after Linux was removed, a class action lawsuit was filed claiming the removal of Other OS was unfair and deceptive. Sony ultimately settled, and users who purchased a PlayStation 3 from launch in 2006 through April of 2010 were eligible for compensation of up to $65 per console. Incidentally, the suit only recently concluded earlier this year in 2018. Sony was more than happy to take the hit for the removal of Linux and lost millions in the process.
I don't know, is that even worth $65? I don't know if that's worth the amount of people pirating games. I think that they were better off just leaving Linux, honestly. Because people who don't even fucking use Linux would fucking take this compensation regardless, right?
But they did so knowing they'd patched up the biggest potential security flaw on the PlayStation 3. But all that changed in September. A mod chip known as PS3 Jailbreak was announced that boasted a very simple method. With a device that plugged into the USB port, it could push a payload to the PS3 which permitted unsigned code to be executed. Initially, the group that developed the PS Jailbreak did not want their secrets discovered, but with proper USB packet capture tools, it was quickly reverse engineered. Exploiting the USB port was not a fluke. You see, Sony had a method in by using an authorized USB device can boot a PlayStation 3 into development or even recovery mode. This was likely used for repairing PS3s in their service center. Hackers exploited this approach, and by injecting code to make their PS3 believe that a single USB device was plugged into a 6-port USB hub, a payload is pushed that executes code during the challenge response of the USB layer and sets up unsigned code execution to run on the PS3. And then came the 1-2 punch. Just a few short months later, the team known as Fail Overflow, a hacking group known for reverse engineering.
So Forsen, when are you actually going to beat Minecraft? Sounds like you need to two-time yourself more often in life, since I'm always doing it with your mom. Omega. Also, chat, stop hating on FeelsOkayMan, he's a bait.
On who? FeelsOkayMan? First of all, I have beaten it multiple times. Alright? That's at least 2 times. Alright? Multiple. And you know, I would have been able to beat my time several of these runs. But I ain't going for just beating my time. I'm setting a good fucking world record, alright? If I don't feel like I can set a good world record, then on to the next one. You
in
know?
consumer electronics
Forsen
performed a
loaded.
presentation at the 27th Chaos Communications Congress Technical Conference of their accomplishments with the PlayStation 3. They presented their methods they devised for having successfully penetrated the device's security model, yielding the PlayStation 3's private root key. The main weakness, as it turns out, was in the random number code generation, which yielded the exact same result
RNG.
every
I know
single
this one.
time. With this known variable, it meant that the group worked backwards from the generated keys and made it trivial to determine the private key. And with this private key, it enabled the signing of code, opening the door up for custom firmware development. So with those two pieces, the PlayStation 3 was busted wide open, all in the space of a few months in late 2010. After being dubbed unhackable for the first 4 years of its life cycle, the PlayStation 3 system was on life support. Sony attempted to mitigate the damage, but it was too late. Sony did manage to patch both of these exploits after firmware 3.55, but the damage was done. Even in 2018, you can still buy a 3.55 equipped PlayStation 3 on eBay very easily without too much trouble. Now, there was a lot of
Who buys a fucking PlayStation 3 though? Come on.
talk on the internet about how
Current
difficult the
year.
Sony PlayStation 3 was to develop for, but that didn't stop some very innovative homebrew emulators and applications that were developed for the PS3. So with an exploited PlayStation 3, developers went to work on developing homebrew. And probably the most popular piece of homebrew for the PlayStation 3 is Multiman. Starting out as a simple game launcher and file manager, it fast became the Swiss Army knife of any modern PS3's arsenal. Multiman is a game launcher, homebrew launcher, web browser, FTP server, file manager, has the ability to dump PS3 games to hard disk, launch emulation ROMs directly without requiring an emulator first. It can play many different varieties of media, including MP3 and most video formats. It can also play PlayStation 1 ISO images.
Oh shit,
and
PlayStation
2
3,
ISO
Avatar,
images
the
direct
game.
from a USB drive or a
Is
hard
the
drive.
Avatar movie that
TLDR,
old?
Multiman is excellent, and every modern PlayStation 3 needs to have a copy of Multiman installed.
What the fuck?
The PlayStation 3 also has a
2009
very capable media player which was known as Showtime and later renamed to Movion. Considering the Xbox 360 never had a homebrew media player, Movion is excellent. It supports MKV, MPEG, MP4, DivX, and many other popular formats. It's skinnable, has a built-in FTP server, and the best part is it's fully integrated with Multiman. It also supports plugins.
Alright,
and
I
popular
mean,
ones include
What do you
Twitch
want?
and
Advertise something that no one's ever gonna play? Like, what? PlayStation 3 in the current year? I get it. They fucking hacked the unhackable. Alright. Code control over the homie.